Hey again, it's Jamie from jamieedwards.com, and today I want to talk to you about how your software company might be changing the way it works depending on if they've found market fit. So when I've worked at software companies over the many different years that I've been with all kinds of different industries and businesses, it's really interesting how you as a software developer may have noticed, or if you're in operations or UX or any of the other disciplines, how the way that people work together and what they expect from each other seems very different depending on if it's a small, medium, or large size company. But it also can change a lot just depending on where the product that you're working on is in its life cycle. And so I want to use this video today to follow up on the video I did yesterday on whether your company is managed by fear. That video really just talks about when a company is in the early stage of its product's growth, how fear can sometimes rule the day and really prevent people from being creative and doing their best work. But this video is going to follow up on that, and it's going to talk about once your company's product has achieved market fit, some of the things that you might be asked to do and that you might encourage your company to do to make it more healthy for people to work together so that the product can make a lot more money, everybody can really enjoy their jobs, and overall the company can be really successful, and hopefully you can too. So I showed this diagram yesterday, and I'm just going to, again, super briefly recap on it. But when a company is working on a software product, and this could be a really big company that has multiple products, this is just looking at one product, or you might be working at a company where they only have one product right now. The green line represents the typical curve of the profit of a software product over its life cycle. So from the time that it starts to be built until it's somewhat sunsetted and isn't making as much money. And I talked yesterday about how if a company isn't using truly lean and agile methods and really just embracing the fact that a lot of the ideas that the company and people who work on the products have are going to not necessarily turn out to be profitable. They're not going to be good ideas. That budgeting can be done in a more healthy way. And I'll talk much more about that in future videos. But the important thing that I was trying to get across about the product at that point is when you're in the early stage of software development, and I'm going to do a video in the future just about software development process a little bit more. I know most of the people I think who are probably watching this channel have been doing this, developing software or working on a team for several years, but I still want to level set with people. Again, the way people are working together in this early stage is really important because everybody needs to have a mindset that we're still trying to figure out what is it that's unique about our product that we had an idea was valuable, that really is valuable. And so, if you look at a product like Instagram as an example, Instagram has a variety of different features, but some people might look at it as a somewhat simple platform. And Instagram, when they first came out, had a very minimal set of features, and they released a little more, and they had some changes to those features, and they released a little more, and they were getting feedback all the time from their customers to find out, are we really moving in the right direction? Are we hitting that magic combination of features and pricing and all the different things that go into running a software business that product can actually grow? And, I would actually say that currently Instagram is closer probably to down here, if you can see my red cursor here, where even though Instagram is a huge application and tons of people use it and it's been acquired by Facebook, the profitability overall of the Instagram platform is really just kind of starting to take off. Now Facebook, I talked about in my prior video, I think their platform's starting to level off a little bit here in its product life cycle, but Instagram is really much earlier. So what I want to talk about today is, I talked about yesterday how you can identify if the company that you're working at, the product you're working on, is in the early stage because they won't have reached a huge number of the customers in their market yet, and they won't have extracted a whole lot of money out of them. So, like I talked about in some of my other videos, I did one on minimum viable products. If you're working at a company and they're trying to get a new product off the ground, they can't satisfy everyone, right? I went through, you can go back and watch my previous video where I go into detail on this diagram, but they're really just targeting a certain subset of their overall customers, this green circle here. Well, at some point, the company hopefully is going to satisfy most of the people in their initial MVP's target market. And so now they know, you know what, we've got a viable business. We're making money. We're acquiring customers at a rate that we're actually growing, and we're making more profit, or hopefully at least we're profitable. And now what? Now what do we do? And why I'm doing this video today is to talk to you as someone who's an engineer or a product manager or in support. If you're just trying to understand at your company and you work in software, how do we change how we work together to make our company and my team maybe keep being successful as the company grows? We're going to talk today a lot about when your company is sort of in this yellow circle. You've satisfied that initial customer base, and now you're trying to really grow into larger accounts. You're trying to satisfy more people, and you're trying to find ways to make more money off the customers you already have. So this diagram here just is an expansion on one of the previous ones, and I'm just showing a middle stage here. Now, again, like I talked about in my prior video, there's multiple different ways that people like to talk about this, and you can break up the life cycle of a software product into 6 stages, 10 stages, but I'm just trying to keep it simple for you because I don't want to overload you with information. I don't want to get into just business architecture geekiness. I really want to help you just so that you can kind of realize where you're in the life cycle of your software development of your product and maybe help people make better decisions about how they work together. So once the company hits this market fit and they've got the right combination of all the different aspects of a software business, pricing, differentiation, distribution channels, all these different things. Don't worry if you don't know what all of this means. I'm going to cover a lot of this in future videos, and I did talk about this in my MVP video some. But once your company gets to this point, it really changes the focus, I think, that people need to have on how they go about working. Because if you think about it, when a product's hit market fit, which is what's represented by this first red line, the end of the early stage, you have probably enough money coming in from existing customers that you definitely don't want to all of a sudden make a change that causes you to lose a whole bunch of those customers. In the news right now, Snapchat just made a major change to their product to make more money off advertising, and it honestly pissed a lot of people off. There was a tweet that went nuts on Twitter where a whole bunch of users were complaining, going, hey, change it back to how it was. So that's just an example of when your software product gets to this market fit, companies have to be a lot more careful, and they still need to be experimenting with what's valuable to their customer, but they need to be a lot more careful and strategic that they don't take something that they built before that was really valuable and change it in a way that honestly frustrates their existing customers, and all of a sudden they start losing them. So because of that, once your company's in the growth stage, and I talked about this a little bit yesterday, one of the biggest things that needs to change on the team and the way software is done is the team needs to be introducing less change into the software product. Now, I'm going to qualify that because I think, if you're watching this video and you're a product manager, you know that it's more complex than that, and there's some other things you have to consider. But I think as a general rule, this is a time when, because the company needs to be very strategic about their decisions, I talked about this yesterday. I really would encourage companies when they get to this point, customers love our product. They might start shouting from the hills, I want you to do this, and I want you to do this, and I hope you guys build this feature, and I hope you guys build this feature. And it takes maturity and patience at your company for your product managers and your project managers and your CEO and everybody who's driving the direction of the product to not all of a sudden fall into reactionary mode where they feel like they have to build everything their customers ask for. There's no way that most companies have the money to just build everything customers want. So really, your best bang for your buck at your company when you get to this point, or if you're on a software development team and you're kind of looking at how the company is being managed and wondering if your job's going to be there for you, if you're going to, continue to get rewards, is look at how people are making decisions on what kind of work the software development team is doing. In this growth stage, what I find is really valuable for the software development team to start doing is to shift from a feature mindset where everybody's working on introducing new features or changing those features based on feedback to a stabilization mindset. So what do I mean by that? Well, Early in the beginning stages of a software product, it's probably really common that your company's using new technology and they've put a team together for the first time. Maybe these are people who work for the company for 10 years, but this specific product team is new. It's a new combination of talent. It may be some junior developers that were hired straight out of college. It may be, some more senior programmers and people who are now working together though on a product for the first time. And during that early stage, there's usually a lot of uncertainty. There's a lot of refactoring of the code. Refactoring, means just changing the way the code's written to be easier to maintain and to kind of meet the requirements better. And so there's so much threshing and changing and constant innovation in the code base. But when you get to this growth stage, to not lose existing customers, to not introduce bugs that you've probably seen in the market, many examples of high profile companies that have introduced a defect in their product that they make it in the news because for some reason there's a security leak, right? Or there's a huge bug where people all of a sudden are able to see stuff that they shouldn't. That's usually something that comes about when a company is trying to have its developers move too quickly and they're trying to still introduce tons of change into the product when they've already reached market fit. And so during this growth stage, when the purpose of the company at this point is to acquire as many customers as they can, new customers, to not lose those existing customers. And the third thing is to find new ways to make money off those existing customers in their current product. A great example of this is free-to-play games. If you've ever played any video games, there's lots of video games out there that a big popular market right now, or popular market strategy for their business model right now, is people come up with a video game, they put it out there for free, and they get a whole bunch of users using it, and then they create a store or some sort of exchange where people can pay real money to win the game. You've heard of the concept of play to win. And while this is something that it's very controversial, a lot of people hate this about games if they go this direction, this usually happens because that company or that software product, because a game is just one type of a software product, has reached the growth stage. And at that point, the business needs to figure out, how do we make money off of our existing customers, our existing gamers in this case, in a way that we can continue to grow the business. So at this point, if you're a software developer or you're in UX or ops and you start to feel like, wow, the things that the business is asking us to do are really out of left field and it seems like there's less predictability, that's actually, keep in mind, that's a good thing because your business is actually experimenting with new business models and new ways to extract revenue. And if they're going to continue to grow and you're going to make more money and you're going to get better raises, you need to be prepared for that and actually embrace that. Be okay with that the management at your company is trying some things. They're experimenting. Now, one fallacy that I see software companies run into is they think once we get into this growth stage, we need to now, just like I talked about yesterday, buckle down on estimation and make sure developers are doing absolutely as much as possible and save costs. I talked yesterday about when companies fall into a cost-cutting mindset, how that cripples innovation. Well, during this growth stage, it is still not a time where your company should be trying to save costs. Now, if there's low-hanging fruit, meaning things you can do about the technology or the business that are easy and everybody can easily quantify the cost, okay, for our developers to make this change, it's going to save us a bunch of money, sure, go out and do it. But my point I'm trying to make is changing the culture of the software development process to one where everybody has to estimate everything and be really prescriptive and predictable about how they go about doing work and measuring the efficiency of developers and basically micromanaging software development effort is not something that you want to do at this growth stage. Because this being inherently knowledge work, you want to allow the team to start to stabilize the code base. Now, the way that the team's going to stabilize the code base is software developers are going to start to get hopefully better at understanding the current patterns. So all this refactoring's been going on constantly, major refactoring during the early stage of the product. We've now hit the growth stage of the product, and hopefully, even though there may be major features being added to go after some way to extract more money from your existing customers, my example of adding, let's say, a store to a game, that's a major feature. The primary patterns of the product at this point really shouldn't be going through any major changes. Now, refactoring is a norm, in my opinion, on every software project, and it should be done automatically. I think it should be done by default whenever a software developer thinks, I need to refactor this to keep it maintainable. You, as the business owner or the product manager or the project manager, should allow them to do that, because they're the ones that make the best decisions about that. They are the people who are on the ground writing the code. It's not really up to you to decide, is it okay to refactor something to keep the code base in shape? That's the software development team's call. And when I see a lot of companies get into trouble in the growth stage, it's when management starts to hear feedback from the software development team that they need to do work that is going to cost some money to keep the code base stable, and they don't want to invest in it. They're chasing new business opportunities over maintainability. And whenever that happens, the thing I think product managers and CEOs and owners of software companies need to understand is they're putting their business at immense risk by ignoring that feedback, because they can simply start, exponentially growing like is shown in this chart, and then tank if they make a really bad decision or they release a really low quality build that hurts the brand reputation of their product in the market. So during this growth stage, it's really important that the software development team and the people who are doing the work on the ground to support the business, that anything that they say needs to be done to keep that product stable, that's listened to, and that's actually in some ways prioritized over changes and new work. So the goal kind of coming out of this growth stage, and I'm going to do a video tomorrow talking about the end of life stage, is by the time we get to that end of life stage, the way that testing is done should be very consistent across all changes to the software product. The way that releasing is done, if you have a deployment pipeline and you're doing continuous delivery and you've got a culture where DevOps is in place, that should be very consistent by the end of the growth stage. The way documentation that goes out to your customers to tell them, here's what's changed about our software product, or here's how we use our software product, that should not be shoot from the hip and you don't have it under control. So by the end of this growth stage, and this can be a long period depending on how steep that curve is, by the end of that growth stage, the business and the software development team should really be at a pretty high level of maturity around how they're developing their software. So the reason why I'm getting this across, and I want to make sure I focus on this today, is one thing that I think a lot of software companies don't think about is when you're in the early stage, that is not that important. I have worked on software products over the years where I come into a product that's brand new. The company's never offered it. And on day one, the software developers on their team want to add automated deployment and continuous delivery and tons of dependency injection frameworks and 16-layer software development architecture, and it takes them like 2 weeks to get a login screen done for customers and things like that. When you're in that early stage, that is a horrible idea. You actually want to keep it really simple because you're still trying to discover what are we really offering in the market that's valuable, and the business can't afford a super robust software architecture when they're changing it all the time, and they may even find that it's not a viable business. Many software companies get towards the end of the early stage and they realize this is not a viable business. We need to kill this product. Well, if they've invested in this super robust software architecture and infrastructure as code architecture and all these best practices that all us software developers and software architects love in the early stage, and they find that the product isn't profitable enough and they need to kill the product, they're going to lose way more money. So I'm going to talk in future videos about if you are someone who likes really rigorous process and a ton of advanced technologies, where you kind of belong in in this stage of the product life cycle versus if you're someone that's more of a risk taker, you're more innovative, you're able to pick simpler architectures, kind of where you belong. But for today, I just want to make sure it's crystal clear to you that the goal of the growth stage, if you're at a company and your product's in that growth stage, is really to eventually get the software development processes, again, testing, support, how vision is done, communication across departments, dependencies, get that as robust and kind of as consistent as possible. Now, software development's difficult and nobody's ever going to get this perfect. And it doesn't mean that by adding all that process, all of a sudden things aren't going to go wrong, because they inevitably do. This is a difficult industry to be in. Don't get into software development if you think your job's going to be easy. You're in the wrong job. So that's what I really wanted to show you in this diagram. And now let's get into how you can identify whether your company is actually at this growth stage. So here's a few signs you can look for to see, has my company's product reached market fit? If I'm on a software development team and I'm kind of looking at how everybody works together and how planning's done and how maybe Scrum or Kanban is managed and the type of work that the team's doing, how do I know if my company's really gotten to that market fit and they're in that growth stage of the product? Well, the first thing is you should start to notice, and this can be difficult if your company isn't transparent about its finances, but that profit goals start to be being reached or even exceeded. So if the company sets a goal, we want to make, $30 million in revenue by the end of the next 2 years, and 2 years in, they hit that goal or they even exceed it, that's probably a good sign that the right business decisions have been being made, the right investments in technology, that the company has found a product that has market fit. It's a successful software product. At that point, it's just keeping that success up, and you're in the growth stage. You want to maximize profit. The second sign that your company's software product that you're working on may have reached market fit and you're now in that growth stage is they start to look at ways to partner with additional technology vendors. So a good example of this is a company that might offer a publishing platform or something as their product. They might start to go out and look for other companies that provide data or services or additional technology, things maybe through APIs that they can plug into their product, and it can bring even more value to their customers. When a company starts to extend their product or extend their platform to offer new value, but they're already profitable, right? They've already you've seen the signs of them hitting their profit goals. That's a really good sign that your company is in that growth stage with their software product. The third thing that you can look for that'll tell you that your company probably has found market fit and they're in that growth stage is a growth of the team size. Now, I do see many companies that grow their team size before they're really ready, and it kind of destroys the culture and destroys profitability. But if your company is hitting their profit goals and people are getting good rewards and there's a lot of good recognition and raises and things to go around and everybody's really feeling good and bullish about the software company, and there's new people being brought on, that's probably a really good sign that your company's at that growth stage of the product's life cycle. And the fourth thing you can look for is a management desire for standardization and stabilization. This is what I talked about before, which is you'll start to hear more things like, we need to start doing testing the same way. We need to get better at our documentation. We need to release our software quicker. We need to stop writing so many defects. If you start to hear those kinds of statements made by management, coupled with that first indicator I talked about, the company's now hitting and exceeding their profit goals, that's also a really good indicator that your company's gotten to a point on your software product that they're in the growth stage. So are you at the growth stage in your software company? What are some of the challenges that you've run into when your company has gotten to that stage, keeping things running smoothly on your software development process? It can be really difficult in this stage because there's a desire to scale up and grow, but also not to lose that innovative culture where people enjoy working at the company and it doesn't just turn into a giant mess. Leave me some comments below. If you're new to my YouTube channel, please subscribe. Click the bell icon next to it and you'll be notified each time I post a new video. I'm also on 4 podcast networks that you can listen to if you'd rather listen to this as a podcast: Stitcher, Google Play, iTunes, and SoundCloud. And if you're on Facebook, you can like me there. So until next time, thanks.